In this video, we're going to have a look at the nestable sliders within Bricks. So in the first post, you'll see that we have three standard sliders next to each other. In the second set of sliders, we have those same three posts next to each other. And on the second slide, we have two products. And on the third slider, you'll see that we have one product. And on the second page, we then have the two products next to each other. So we're just going to have a look to see how these are put together. And of course, if you click anywhere on the sliders, you'll go straight through to that particular product, or in the case of the posts, you'll go straight through to the post. So that's how we have set up those sliders. And now what we're going to do is recreate those sliders. So first thing we're going to do then is add, and we look for the slider, and it's the nestable slider, and we're going to add that to the top of the page. Now what we're going to do is just make a few small changes and create the first post slider. First thing we're going to do is delete the second and third slides. We're not going to need those. And the other thing we're not going to need is this button. So we'll delete that. We'll head over to the first slide, and then on the left-hand side here under content, we'll say use query loop. And the query loop that we're going to use will be the post standard, pretty much as it is by default, except we're going to change the number of posts to 3. So we'll just have the first 3 slides in the slider. The next thing that we need to do after the query setup is we can change this HTML div for the slide. We're going to change that to a link, and we'll select the dynamic data, and then we'll select the post link. So there we have the post link set up for the slide. Now we need to just change the heading. So we select the heading, and you'll see here now on the left-hand side, we have the title slide 1. We're going to remove that. And then from the data we can select, we'll select post title. And we're almost done. What we must do now is change the background image. So for that, we head over to Style, scroll down till we get to Background. Once on Background, select Dynamic Data. We can just scroll to Featured Image. And what we must do then is also set that to No Repeat. And what we also want to do is set the position. And the position we want is center center. So change it from the default top left to center center. And we're pretty much done. We can save that. Then you'll see I'm now going to refresh the page. And there we have the slide. We're not seeing the background image pulling through. Let's just have a look and see why that is. So we do have the featured image set, background. I've set that on the heading. Okay. I'm not sure why I did that. Right, let's remove that. So this featured image here, we don't need. Right, so we remove that and go back to the slide. And then on the slide, background, we will select the featured image. Make sure it's set to no repeat. It's on cover. And then we want the center center. Right, so that's looking good. And back to the website, refresh. And now you'll see that we have the 3 slides coming through. Of course, then we can adjust the height as we need. So yeah, that's pretty much then, how you can create a default slide from the standard post loop. Now what we're going to do is have a look at creating the same slider, but we're going to put the 3 posts next to each other. So to do that, once again, we look for the slider in the content, select the nestable slider, and we're going to just drag that over to the page, and I'll just pop it in about there. So that's going to be the second slider. So here it is on the right hand side. The first thing that I'm going to do for this slide though is I'm going to set it to a specific width. I don't want it the width of the whole page. So to do that, I'm going to go to Layout. The width here, we'll set that to maybe let's make it 1 to 100 pixels. And then to center it on the page, just auto margin left and auto margin right. So there we have it set. We're also going to delete the items that we don't need. So now we're just left with the one slide, and what we're going to do now in that slide, we need to create a post loop. So we go back to content and we change that to a query loop, and in that query loop, post, everything stays the same, and we once again change it to 3. So now we have the 3 posts coming through in this loop, and I'm not going to be setting the background image in this case. So now we want to create the 3 individual slides. So the first thing we do then is we head over to that first slide, and I'm going to give that slide a width of 33%. So, and now you'll see that it's not really working the way that we want. But before I get to that, what I need to do is add another container here so that I can get the spacing correct for that slide. If I try on the slider nestable, I'm not sure if I just found it easier to go container here, add the container, and then in that container, what we do is we set the layout to flex and to 3 columns, and we'll just set that to stretch. And then what we do is we pop the slide inside the container, and you can already see things are starting to come together here now. We have the 3 slides next to each other. Okay, so we have that in place. Now what we must do is those individual containers, we first adjusted the width. So we have the slider, the container. Now these individual slides are set to 33% in width, and that's so we can have the 3 next to each other. But we still want to create some space in the middle so we can get the layout looking good. So to do that, I'm going to add, inside the slide, I'm going to add a div. So we'll just look for the div, and then inside that we're going to include the heading, and then the button I'm going to do away with. We're not going to need that button. And so there we have the slide, and then we have the div. So that slide now I'm going to give some padding, and I'll make that 15 pixels all around. And then the div, which is now filling that slide, I'm now going to give that a width of 100%, and I'm also going to give it a height of 100%. Right, next thing on the task list then is we need to add a featured image, and I'm going to use a container for that as well because it's going to be a background image. So I will go with another div there, and that div then I will just go down to well, we'll set the width to 100%, and we'll give it some padding. So maybe let's go 150 and 150, and we'll scroll down to, or we'll just collapse that and then go down to the background, select the featured image as the background image for that particular div, and we'll set that to center, and we're also going to set that to no repeat, and of course the default of cover. So there we have our featured image. So that's coming through already. And right, so we have the title here, and we have the featured image here, and then we have the title here. So for the title, we just need to add some spacing in case we have a very long title. We want it to be a small distance away from the edge, and to do that, we'll just make that 15 pixels all around. And what I'm also going to do is just change the font weight. Typography, let's change that to 500. So there we have the slide. And then, of course, if we want to, we can set that to be in the middle. I'm going to go back to the div that contains our elements, and we're going to add a bit of style to that. So let's head over to the border and box shadow. Border, we'll just make that, we can make that 2 pixels, why not? It'll be solid, and we'll give that a radius of 10 so that it's easily identifiable. And the next step, we'll go to the box shadow and we'll go 0, 10, 10. And color wise, I think we can do that. And if it's a little bit bright, we can just make it slightly lighter. And maybe we don't want the blue. Maybe we'll try this one. And yeah, so that's kind of coming along okay. And then, yeah, so that's looking pretty close. Let's change the slide title then. So we'll go to content, remove slide 1, and then we'll insert the post title. And now what you'll notice is that although I added the rounded corners, you can see here that the image is still kind of making it a square corner. It's not behaving. So that does often happen with images when you do rounded corners. So to get rid of that, we just head over to layout and we want to go to overflow and change that from visible to hidden, and that is now fixed. And so maybe what I want to, yeah, so that's done. Right, so that's fixed. And then also what I'd like to do now on the slide is I don't want this background color of the gray. So we head over to the slider nestable. We go to background. I'm going to set that to white. And then that should, has that resolved? Yeah, that should resolve the issue. Okay, that wasn't really white. So let me change that color here. Make it completely transparent. Let's just save that and have a look at what we got. I'm not sure what's going on there. So we'll save and have a look. And right, so there we have the 3 posts next to each other. And I'm not sure why we that. Just have a look here. So the background, we've made the background completely transparent, so that shouldn't be showing. And here it's hard to tell if it's working. Let's just check this layout. Then we had the container. So the container, we must set that width to 100%. Right, and we'll set the elements to the middle, the center, and save. Right, there we go. Right, so that looks almost right. And the last thing that I'm going to do then is on the nestable slider, I'm going to go to style, and here I'm going to add some padding, and we're going to make that 30 all round. Right, then we have the container. Make that the height 100%. Right, so there we have our individual slides. Let's just save that and have a look. Right, so there we have the 3 slides next to each other. Now what we want to do is add the second slide. Right, this key line around the div here does kind of make it confusing next to the image. So let's head over to the div, borders, and I think we're going to remove that border. So we'll make that 0, and I think that gives the image a nicer edge. And save that. Right, let's just check the style on that slide 1. And we're going to make the height there 100% as well. Okay, so let's head over what we can do maybe is just add a little bit more padding, the top and the bottom, and you'll see it was cutting off that shadow. So with that padding at the top of the bottom of the slide, we've resolved that. Now when we have a look on the front end, it's yeah, that's looking a lot more like the way we wanted it. And now when I go to the slider, content, arrows, and we'll activate the arrows to show. And let's add the second slide. So the second slide can be a lot simpler. What we'll do then is this container, we'll just right click and we'll duplicate. And if I wanted to show 3 more slides from posts, very easy then. I will head over to the post query. We'll leave it at 3, but then I'm going to make an offset of 3. We'll save, head over to the website, refresh. And now you'll see that, let me try that again. There we have the 2 slides. So the first slide with 3 posts, and then the next slide with the following 3. Let's just have a look at some of that spacing. So let's go over to the title, typography. We did set that to 500. Let's make it 400. Save. Right, so that's looking a lot better. So there we have our, let's just see why. So on the second one, we need to do the same. So now you just need to remember that if you make a change to the one, you actually do need to head over to the second one to make the same change. So we'll see how that, let's just check that again. Container, there we go. So we'll see now that the height is not auto adjusting to the height of the post. So we need to just go and see where that is being held up. Let's have a look here at the slider height. So the slide, here we have the height 50, and maybe I'm not sure if auto would work, or let's save that, and now we refresh, and now you'll see that the slides are the correct height, and that's really based on the largest text area. So we just change that height to auto on the post loop. So if it does look a bit odd, then the only other choice we would have then is on those headings would be to change the size of the heading, and then that would reduce the size of that gap, or change the line height or the font. But there you can see, it doesn't matter what it is, it's going to work. So that's how we then created the slider for the posts. If you wanted to create a product slider, what's nice now is that we already have all the basics in place. So what we can do now is simply right click on the slider, we'll duplicate. Then we'll go into that nestable slider and we'll head over to the slide with the query. And now we change the post type to products. And we do that on the second container as well. So slide. And I'm going to change the post type here. And that's how you can also mix up between different, you could have different kinds of slides following each other. So you could have posts followed by products. Let's just have a look. I'm going to save that. Let's see what we've got. So there we have the posts, and there we have the products. And right, what we didn't do was set a link to the different post types. So on the post here, we'll just go over here. So if we want to set the link to the particular item, then on the slide, we can set it there, or we can set on the div. So let's try and do it on the div, and then we'll select the dynamic data, and under dynamic data, we don't want the featured image, we want the post link. So there we have the post URL. We set that on the second container as well. So link, and it's going to be dynamic data, post link. Right, so those are done. And then we can do the same for the product. So here on the product, open it up, head over to the div, change the HTML tag to a link, change that to dynamic data and the dynamic data to post link, and then the same here, HTML to link, and then type dynamic data and then to post links. So there we've set up all the post links. Head over to the website, refresh, and we should have links now on all our slides. Let's have a look. Right, so there we have the link to the different posts. So like we're being, and then here to the products, the WordPress pennant. There we go. And on the second slide, let's have a look at single. We're off to single. So that's pretty much then how you can do that. If, for example, on the second slider, if I wanted to change the second one to products, then quite easily head over to my slide where I have the query, and all I'm going to do is change the post type to products, save, and let's say I wanted to include the sale items with the first 3 products. Then what I must do here is go over to the slide, go over to that query, head down to meta query, and the meta key underscore sale underscore price, and the value will make 0, and then the compare, we're going to say greater than. Save, and now you'll see that we'll have different products showing up on the first slide. So there we have the mix there between the posts. Second one has got the products. Down here we'll have the sale items first, and then the standard items. What's nice then as well is that if we look at the that slide that we made for the sale items, if we want to, we can add other elements here. So we could, for example, add the product price as well. So product price under the title. So we've added the product price. Let's save. Head over to the website. And there you can see we have the product price. I haven't formatted it, but you can see then on that slide where we have the sale items, we've added the product price. In fact, what we can do on that div, let's go to layout and so 100%. What we can do then on the product price, let's head down to typography, and we'll just center that. Right, so that's centered. We'll make it a bit bigger. And if we want, we can also make it red. Save. And that'll just draw attention then to the fact that the items are on sale. So there we have very quickly then added the price. And then on the second slide, there's no price. So that's just to maybe draw the attention. So that's how you can create, the standard single slide, or you can create the more interesting with the 3 items next to each other. If you wanted to create something interesting with a single layout, then we can do that as well. What I'll do is I'm just going to copy. So we'll duplicate the slide, and then what I'm going to do is in this container, I'm going to move that to the top. I'm going to remove that container. And then what I'm going to do here, where we have the slide, and we'll go to the query, then we'll just change that query to 1. So now we just have the one slide coming through. Right, then we need to have a look at changing the layout. So so in the slide here now, we need to just change that to a horizontal layout from a vertical layout. And to do that, from this div, we should be able to, under the layout, static, hidden. Right, so that's not going to work. There's no option here to edit, and the reason might be because that particular div has been changed to a dynamic link. So over here under display, we'll change that to flex, and we'll change that to horizontal row. Right, and then of course it would be a case of moving things around. The slider, though, with the auto height does create a bit of havoc in the back end. So this height will just change it back to the default, the 50 VH. That'll just make it easier to edit. So now what we can do is we're now going to go with a single slide, and then we can have the second slide appear slightly different. So not sure what's happening here. Let's have a look. So let's just check. Yeah, so there we have the horizontal layout on the first slide, and the second slide still has the 3. So on the first one now, if we wanted to change that layout, it's appearing rather odd here in the back end, but it is working on the front end. So let's have a look. So we have the slide and style. I'm going to set that layout now from 33 to 100%, and that might resolve the issue. There we go. That div. Then we come to the image, and the image width now, we're going to change that to 60%. Content. We'll set the layout to the center, something like that, and then we can, do what we kind of like with the heading. So maybe what we'll do is we'll add, let's add another div, and then I'm going to put the heading and the product price in that div. So yeah, and then that div will be pretty standard. And now I can get a bit creative with the layout. So we'll head over to style. Let's add some padding, make that 15 pixels all round. We'll set a background. We'll make that background color white. Then what I'm going to do is go to borders and shadow. So we'll just give that a border, maybe 2 pixels. Not that we need to. Solid. Make that 10, and we'll change the color. Right, so we have our border, we have the border radius. Let's make that all the corners, and then I'm going to go back to layout, and then the margin here I'm going to make -100, and that'll just pull that in over the edge there. It just gives that nice little kind of effect. And then maybe what I'll do on the image is I'm going to change maybe to 180 and 180 to make it a little bit bigger, and we'll save, head over to the front end, refresh, and now you can see we have a slightly different layout, and we have a bit of an issue here with some spacing. So to resolve that, let's head over. Was in that actual div. And the div we've made, it's automatically, I'm almost wondering if we need to limit, I don't think we should restrict the height of the image now because of the horizontal view. And what we can do is make that image div, give it a height of 100%. That way it should always fill the space. And let's save. Right, so there we have the product image now looking good. We have the beanie with logo, and then on the next slide we have the 3 products next to each other. So that's how you can mix it up with the slider, the nestable slider within Bricks. You have a lot of choices, quite a few options, so you can really have a lot of fun creating the sliders. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, and thank you for watching.